roads that lead to conclusions. Maybe we combine clarity of mind with kindness of heart, and maybe be impartial without bending to strong personalities. May we sacrifice self-interest for the good of the whole. May we do our work with love, clarity of vision for the benefit of those we represent. Please be seated. I will call the regular meeting November 20th to order, and we have an introduction of late items, which are listed on your agenda under 2.1. And so a motion to approve the agenda with the added items, late items of 8.8 and 13.1. Thank you. Councillor Jackson. Councillor Bruce. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. So we move to adoption of minutes. We have item 4.1, which is the regular meeting of October 16th, and a motion to adopt the minutes.
So moved.
Moved and second. Thank you. Any discussions? Hearing none. All in favor? Thank you. Motion's carried. Item 4.2, which is the October 20th special committee, the whole meeting minutes, and a motion for adoption. Thank you. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Item 4.3, which is the October 27th special committee of the whole meeting, and a motion for adoption of the minutes. Thank you. Seconded. Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And item 4.4, which is the November 6th committee of the whole minutes, and a motion for adoption. Thank you. Seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. So we go to now to our delegations. We have two delegations this evening, and our first is the regular quarterly report, or third quarterly report for the RCMP, and I welcome Inspector Chris Bear. And thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councillors. Apologize for the delay in the third quarter report there, conflicting schedules, and it's for a period of July, August, and September 2017. So the report that we sent in, third quarter calls for service are up slightly from 2016. They're at 5,436, up from 5,403 from the year before. You can tell by the statistics there, we've got a couple of robberies that we had, which put the numbers up substantially. The change is 150%, it says down there. Reviewed the files, and there was 2 robbery files that were substantiated, and reports to Crown were put in with charges. As well, mischief to property was up substantially as well, and that was as a result of the change in scoring. From causing a disturbance, we're not using that as much, and we were putting it more for mischief, disturbing the lawful enjoyment of one's property. Quite a few homeless complaints there as well, so we're attributing that to those numbers there. From January to September 2017, calls for service equaled 15,629 calls, compared with 15,047 calls in 2016. That constitutes close to a 4% increase in calls for service in the first 9 months of 2017. I looked at the calls for service in October, and we're roughly on the same path, 370 for October 2016 and 365 for October 2017. So we're still staying that course of being up in calls for service, as we are for the past several years. There have been increasing. In the first 9 months of 2017, approximately 21% of our files were from the city of Duncan, 48% came from within the municipality of North Cowichan, 11% came from the provincial area, and 15% came from First Nations lands in our detachment area. 5% originated from people coming directly to the office to report crime and calls for service. We're continuing with the general duty staffing analysis at the detachment. Excuse me. We reviewed that. Proactive activities for uniformed general duty officers remains extremely low in the third quarter of 2017. It's at 7%, which is up from 5% for the last quarter, and that equates to approximately 50 minutes of proactive activities in a 12-hour shift for our officers, so that's quite low. As a result of this, what I've done is I've submitted several business cases for additional officers and submitted that through Chief Superintendent Sean Sullivan through Island District for additional officers, as well as a crime analyst and a support personnel as well. At the front counter of the detachment, the number of persons attending the front counter for assistance from July to September were 3,266. Telephone calls received at the front counter the same period was 4,579. So average number of persons per weekday coming in, 53. Average number of phone calls received during the weekday, 73.8. Crime reduction, we continue to engage with prolific offenders, try to stop them at the onset from committing a bunch of crime, which we found that it's usually individuals that are committing the same offense throughout the community time and time again. We try to target those individuals and bring our numbers down. Domestic violence unit continues to work in partnership with the interagency case assessment team. For the quarter, we have received 3 referrals. So year to date, for the calendar year, we have 15 ICAT files that have been opened. We've got 1 active from October and 1 active so far in November. South Island Traffic Service is continuing to assist us in our area, and they spent a large number of time, I believe, in September, so our stats are up a little bit higher from that assistance from South Island Traffic Service in September. We're doing quite well with our traffic safety, but I would like to see an increase from our members in targeting distracted driving, and that's the pushed ahead of leading cause of crashes ahead of impaired driving now. So I'd like to see our officers do a little bit better job in targeting that. Our Traffic and Community Engagement Unit continues to focus their efforts on 5 identified priorities. That's visibility, traffic, homelessness, bylaws for nuisance properties, and youth at risk. They also provide assistance to the General Duty Detachment. For the quarter, the detachment as a whole conducted 379 foot patrols, 112 bike patrols, 92 school zone patrols, and 913 hotspot patrols. And that hotspot is where we have identified a significant increase in crime, and we'd like officers to get out there and pay particular attention to that. They also continue with the Car 60 program, and I'm looking at expanding that to 2 days a week. They go out and provide assistance with those individuals with mental health issues and are in crisis, and that's attempting to try and decrease wait times at the hospital and get our officers out on the road back there ready for duty. On October 19th, we partnered up with ICBC as part of National Teen Driver Safety Week. We conducted a mock collision event at the Cowichan High School. The event depicted what actually takes place at a scene of a crash. This included real responses by the police, fire departments, ambulance, tow trucks. Grade 12 students received a clear message that talking or texting on a cell phone while driving actually kills. We'd like to thank the Warmline Community Policing, ICBC, Tiger Towing, Cowichan Sound and Cellular, Panago Pizza, Victim Services, local paramedics, North Cowichan Fire Departments, Duncan Fire Departments, Juice FM, Cowichan Tribes. So it had an amazing day, and actually people of the community thought that there was an actual crash and were watching it as well. And we had advertised it quite highly that it wasn't real, but it was an event there for the students. Officers made 62 bar checks and patrols through the licensed establishment, special occasion license as well. And we're continuing to work with the Warmland Restorative Justice Society to streamline the restorative justice process. We found that it was taking a substantial amount of time to get files for restorative justice through the system, so we're working with them to streamline it and trying to get it done in a timely fashion. I'm quite pleased with what's going on so far. Our prisoner statistics, year-to-date total for 2017, We've had 1,310 prisoners incarcerated at our detachment. In 2016, the same time period was 1,509. So that's a decrease of almost 200 prisoners per year. And I'd like to credit that in part to the Sobering and Assessment Center that was created and providing additional care to those under the influence of alcohol and other drugs. Cowichan volunteer programs. I can't say enough about Carol Ann Rolls there. I've submitted the document there. She has worked instrumental with our policing volunteers and have done an exceptional job at setting up a number of programs there. I won't get into each and every one of them, but she remains busy and engaged with us and doing amazing things with the community and trying to educate them as well. So I can't say enough about what they're doing and enough about the volunteers. So on October 4th, 2017, RCMP held an awards ceremony at Island District, and several North Cowichan Duncan RCMP officers that were recognized and given awards for that. Constable Gina McRae got a commanding officer's commendation for talking a suicidal male down from the top of the Silver Bridge. Constable Joe Power got a commanding officer's commendation for his response to a homicide in Chemainus and his life-saving efforts on that day. Constable Clay Wersinger and Boomer, the Nanaimo detachment, got commendations for their work locating and saving an individual after she spent 1 week in the wilderness and falling down a remote ravine. John Prokop got a commendation for assisting an officer who was being assaulted by an individual and being choked out. Paul Peters of the Amateur Radio Society got a commendation for his work in the amateur radio field and emergency planning for the west coast of Vancouver Island. So that's great to see that a number of civilians were also recommended and commendated at that event. On November 16th, members of the Sea Watch General Duty Detachment took part in Coffee with a Cop. So that was Inspector Ray Carfentan that ordinarily did that. This time we thought different to do the entire watch so that members of the community could sit down and enjoy a coffee with a police officer, first responder, and talk about real life situations and talk to them as police officers. So we did that day, and we look forward to continuing it. It was really favorable comments coming out of it, and we actually picked up tab for all the coffee as well. So that was it was a day both for the officers and for the individuals in the community. So it was well done. Since coming to the officer in charge of this position, I'm very proud of the work that we're doing at the North Cowichan Duncan Detachment. I'm seeing really good leadership by our members at the non-commissioned officer ranks through corporal, sergeant, and staff sergeant ranks. We've got strong teamwork at frontline general duty teams. 3 media liaison officers, Corporal Krista Hobday, Constable Amron Russell, and Constable Pam Bolton are getting that information out to the public in a timely fashion, and that's what I want to see. Our plainclothes units are tackling the illicit drug trade head-on and doing what we can with our limited resources and demands upon the RCMP. And First Nations Community Policing Unit remains well engaged with Cowichan tribes, and we have a strong relationship there. Our support staff are also working diligently and very hard in conjunction with our officers, and what I say in the office is that no job is more important than the other, and when it comes to our support staff, they're equally as important as the frontline officers out there in the community. So on that note, I'm very proud to be here, and thank you very much for allowing me the time to present. If there's anything else that Mayor and Council would like to see in these reports, I remain open and flexible to whatever you would like to see. So.
Okay, thank you, Inspector. I've got a couple of questions and some councillors as well. So on the human resources status study, we have a request for a meeting with the Solicitor General. We have not heard a reply yet from the Solicitor General. I believe that we have or will be following up with them to ensure that we get that meeting. Can you tell me when the specifics of that study would get known to us so that we can at least be in the knowledge of the information that it provided, at least the broad strokes of it? with respect to the amount of resourcing on the provincial side? Because that's what we'll be emphasizing is an increase in the provincial side of the detachment.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Mr. Mayor, and I'll gladly share the information, whatever you would like to see, so to speak. There's no time limit set on the general duty staffing analysis study. It's ongoing, and they like to look at it over a period of time, and there's no end in sight. Even with the study, there's no guarantee that there will be additional resources coming. I'm led to believe that the new provincial government is very eager to work with the RCMP and look at additional allocation as well. And it's ongoing as well with the status of the new detachment as well. So,
Yeah. So it would be wise for us to touch base with you before we go to that meeting to make sure we have the most current information anyway. Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
The other question I have is with respect to the auxiliary officers program or auxiliary member program. Is there been any status change? I know that the province, the Solicitor General, the last Solicitor General was very supportive of the auxiliary program, and I know there were changes made in Ottawa with respect to the status of that. Has there been any change there, or is there a push to try to see that program reinstated in a similar way as it was previously?
I believe there is a proposal before the RCMP in Ottawa. They have a tiered structure to determine the levels of what the auxiliaries are going, or what roles they're going to take, and that's still awaiting approval. So I'm not sure the timeline for that, but the auxiliary program is an excellent program, and it's kind of a sit and wait, so to speak.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I appreciate the changes that have come in, and for some of the reasons that they were put in place. But it's a valuable program from our perspective, because I think our program had 11 members in it here, which we've gone through waves of having auxiliary members and not having them, and I think it's better to have them. They're a good assistance for the regular general duty patrols, and so I would be grateful to hear that Ottawa provides flexibility.
Yeah, it's a great program, and the auxiliary constables that we do have are an amazing bunch and volunteer their time to come out, and they're dedicated for it. So very frustrating for them, sit and wait, and I sympathize with them, and unfortunately that's beyond my power.
Yes,
what
I
we're
appreciate
to do with that.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Councillor Duncan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question on the distracted driving. Didn't hear recently there was going to be an increase in penalties, and my phone actually won't let notifications come through when I'm driving. And I never did anything to it. I think it came that way from the factory, but I'd heard that there was going to be increased penalties for distracted driving. Have you heard anything yet?
Yeah, I heard that the penalties were going to be increasing as well. I don't have the specifics on me, but I'll have a look at that.
Councillor Bruce.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. A couple of questions, if I may. Some communities have used bait bikes and bait cars. Have you had a discussion with that at all, or is that something that might work in the Cowichan Valley?
We had, that's a very good point there. We had the bait car program up here last year, and we tried, and unfortunately there was nobody.
Nobody touching them.
Yeah. So, we've tried it, and we're always open to it, and we're exploring other ways of doing things. I don't want to talk about that in a kind of public forum as well, because there is the bait program out there. I know with the bait car program, it was reduced substantially, but there are other programs out there that we are actually using, and
There's if I may, there's a couple of drug houses around in the Cowichan Valley. I drive by one all the time, and people always ask me, why can't these be shut down or something done about them? Is there anything that we can do to help as a council for you? And is there anything you can discuss in a public forum that says why these drug houses keep running the way they do?
yeah, there's a substantial amount of laws and time there. You know what? Pretty much on a daily basis, I speak with people about this. It's very important for the community not just give up hope. The one main thing that I like to talk about is that the calls need to come in from the community, and we will create an occurrence report for that. So the call goes into our dispatch centers, and the specialists up there will take the information, and they will create a file. It's not necessarily that they will respond right then and there, the officers, to go ahead and do something, but that person may have that one little piece of the pie that we're looking for in order to gain a search warrant, in order to be able to go inside that house. We have to remember that we have rights and laws, in the Charter of Rights and Freedom, that we can't just go into a house and invade them. We have to be given that lawful authority from a judge or a justice, and our information has to be accurate and correct and solid. So there's a substantial amount of work behind it. We simply just can't go in and barge in. And I'm sure that everyone here can appreciate nobody likes the police to come in and kick their door in and just come in and have a look around. So we have to be solid in that. And if we're not solid in our investigation, then there's additional authorities that are taken away from us and more scrutiny from the judges. And public trust is lost. So we have to be cognizant of that. We have to get everything done proper and right the first time, because there is no second time. And yes.
So do you need more resources to go after these drug houses? Is that really the issue, the money and the time?
Well, there's a number of issues, but yes, we are tasked here with a lot of work going on day to day with just the calls coming in, and it is difficult with manpower issues and demands, because one call is it's dependent on who is calling, because my call is more important than your call is more important than that person's call. So where do we have to put the priorities to? So a house on fire, someone shooting at somebody, where's the priorities that have to go to? So the 911 calls, they take precedent because they need a police officer there now. It's not to say that we're not looking at each and every drug house, so to speak, or suspect. We are. We're taking information, but which ones are we acting on? So, thank you.
Thanks. Just for council's note, we did make some adjustments to our bylaws over the past year in consultation with the RCMP with respect to what was needed and what would help from our perspective, from the perspective of the municipal regulations that could manage those. And I think we've had some success in that this year, but it's a challenge if it keeps, they just keep coming back. And if it's not one location, it becomes another or repeat in the same location. So, but I appreciate that, and we will take the message to the Solicitor General when we are apprised of our meeting with him about the resources need here. Okay, if there's no other questions from council, thank you very much, Inspector.
Thank you.
So we move on to our next delegation, and this is Miss Carol Martino. Did I pronounce that good?
Yeah.
Thank you. And you're from the Cowichan Intercultural Society, and you're giving an update of the work you're doing there.
Sorry?
You're giving an update of the work you're doing
Yes.
there, which I know is quite very, very active.
Yeah, we are pretty busy lately.
You can take the microphone off the stand if you like, so that it's closer to you when you're speaking, and you can turn to the
Okay.
presentation.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, no, I'm fine. Thank you. Okay, well, my name is Carol Martino. I'm the Director of Operation of Cowichan Intercultural Society. Brian Seif, our development coordinator, is supposed to be here tonight, but he wasn't able to come, and they sent me. And our services, since 1991, Intercultural Society has been working. This is our service area, from Ladysmith to the Malahat, and from Lake Cowichan to the coast. And our programs and services. We have settlement service, including Swiss settlement workers in schools. It's our liaison between now that we have all the refugees in the schools, and they help the teachers, the students. They are kind of a bridge between them. We have language instruction for newcomers to Canada with limited child minding. We have the fundamental, intermediate, advanced classes. We have moms and tots, the child minding. We are renting a little house beside our building, and the kids are with the moms during the mornings. And we have during the night English for the workplace. Plus, we have employment assistance, men, women, children, youth, and elders group. Community connection is including bridging, tutoring, and mentoring programs. Community outreach, sponsorship agreement holder, Intercultural Society. 2 years ago, signed an agreement with IRCC. We are sponsorship agreement holders. That means the refugees can be sponsored through us. And we are pretty busy since then with so many applications. I'm the sponsorship agreement holder coordinator, which is I'm processing all those applications to the government. Plus, another big program that we have is One World Festival. We celebrated One World Festival last year, and the coming is next year. Probably it's going to be at the same place, the VIU campus. Our staff, we are 25 full-time, part-time, and contract staff, and we speak more than 10 languages. We are counting that today. And we are so grateful because we have more than 120 volunteers that are helping us. We serve more than 500 clients during the year. Some of them, they are funded by RCC, BC eligible clients, and 75 of our clients, they are registered in our English classes. It is a big number for us. Since December 2010, we welcomed 75 Syrians. That means on 7 government-assisted refugee families, 4 private-sponsored refugee families. This is what we do through the settlement agreement holder program. 4 blended visa office refer families. There are 32 adults and 45 children who arrived since 2015 to Cowichan Valley. 31, they are in school age, and 14 under 5, and most of those kids are coming to our child minding. CIS building committee was formed 2 years ago. I don't know if you know our offices, but they are getting small for us. And we have a building committee, they are looking at a house for us. Finally, we think that we found it here in downtown Duncan, but it's confidential. We can't say anything about it yet, but we are close to sign the purchase. That's why our capital campaign started last May in our dance-a-thon here at Charles Howey Park. And our capital campaign next step, they're going to be the monthly donors relaunch campaign, multi-year pledges, major donors campaign, corporate sponsor, third-party fundraising, grants opportunities, and naming opportunities. Our goal with our capital campaign is $100,000. And those are the highlights of our year. One World Festival, our winter celebration last year, it was a success. We have more than 200 people. And our Chinese New Year, our Founders Tea, we reconnect with the CIS founders, CIS, Cowichan Intercultural Society. They are servicing clients for more than 35 years, and we connected with those founders, and it was a success. Tea. Youth Action Day is another big program that we have. And last summer, we have summer students that rebuild our website. We have a new promotional film that I wanted to share with you tonight. And the other one, it was helping with our database. And that's the end. I don't know if we
Thank you. Does
have more questions.
any of council have any questions? No?
Yeah.
Councillor Jackson?
Thank you for that. That was really interesting. Are you looking to build a new building or do a purchase of a building that's for sale that would be suitable?
Purchase a building that is for sale.
Okay, thank you.
And we found one, and probably everything goes well. We're going to be close to make it public to everybody, but now it's confidential. We can't say anything about it.
Yeah, I understand the search has been on for some
Yeah,
time.
for 2 years, yeah.
Yes. And, I just want to say, I know how active the Intercultural Society is here and the history of it in the city and serving new citizens, but also being of great benefit to existing citizens who live here as well. So it's very much appreciated what you do.
No, and thank you for your support to Intercultural Society.
Yeah, thank you
I
very
don't know
much.
if I can show the video.
Sure.
The Cowichan Intercultural Society is the leading community resource for immigrant settlement services. Every year, we support hundreds of newcomers by providing the information and support that they need to adjust to living and working in Canada. Our settlement staff assist clients with a range of issues such as immigration and citizenship questions, job search assistance, childcare, landlord-tenant issues, and accessing government programs. We also offer a variety of programs and classes that provide helpful skills to newcomers and help with their integration into Canadian society, such as the Language Instruction for Newcomers to Canada program and one-on-one English tutoring. Group workshops such as life skills are also available for parents and children. The Cowichan Intercultural Society works with the community to promote cultural awareness and appreciation in the Cowichan region through a number of community events and community building programs. Yearly, our organization hosts and co-sponsors a variety of events and programs, including a biannual One World Festival, bridging dances, celebrations of cultural holidays, and we organize various community workshops and seminars focused on creating inclusive and welcoming communities. One of our most important community building programs is our Community Connections program, which provides opportunities for Cowichan Valley residents to connect with and welcome new immigrants to the region, giving them opportunities to build relationships. We are proud to have sparked the Cowichan Valley's Intercultural Partnership Network, which works toward strengthening community connections throughout the valley. Additionally, the Intercultural Society hosts a series of workshops and exhibitions at local schools to share the rich cultural diversity of the Cowichan Valley. The Cowichan Intercultural Society believes that working with our youth is an integral part of building a welcoming community in the Cowichan Valley. We accomplish this through engaging with schools as well as through youth outreach and leadership programs. We are proud to organize various programs focused on supporting youth in creating an inclusive community, 3 of which being the Multicultural Leadership Group, the Youth Ambassador Program, and the Compassionate Leaders Project. As a whole, these programs bring together youth and adults as well as youth from all over School District 79, all to promote inclusiveness and anti-discrimination. We also support the Compassionate Leaders Project in organizing Youth Action Day, which celebrates and motivates local youth to get involved with the community. We run summer and spring camps that invite immigrant children to engage in fun activities in a welcoming group environment run by youth volunteers, and we operate a child mining center for children under 5 years old.
One word for CIS, School of Food.
Wonderful, yeah.
Family.
Opportunity.
Cooperation. Community.
Inspirational.
Inclusion.
Trust.
Great. Exciting. So thank you, Carol, for your presentation, and we'll see you again.
When I came
And we
here,
hope to celebrate your
6 years
new
ago,
exciting location
I
for
came
you soon.
straight from Cuba
Okay, we move now to the report of the Chief Administrative Officer, and it was circulated to your desks. And Mr. Dervertai, if you'd just like to give your highlights that you would like to present.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just wanted to note a couple of them. The Council has set a new public hearing date of November 27th for the zoning bylaws. This will be the second public hearing the city's had, as we received some feedback at the last public hearing and some changes to suit. We have had a number of people contact the city since the last public hearing to give us additional feedback, and the public is encouraged to do so between now and the next public hearing, as it's much easier for staff to provide those answers in a one-on-one session, as opposed to during the public hearings more for public comment, as opposed to a question period. So I definitely encourage those with questions to contact staff. Just a few other things to note. The Canarsmore Neighborhood Plan, the consultant RFP is being drafted and anticipated to be issued in December to be completed in the spring. And at long last, the Canada Avenue washroom retrofit, the RFP is being finalized and will be issued within the next week. Lastly, on the agenda tonight is the contract award for the communications consultant for the amalgamation referendum. Staff are anticipating a letter from the minister very soon regarding the referendum timing itself, but we have not received anything as of yet.
Okay. Thank you. If you have any questions of the CAO at the end of the meeting, at the question period, you can ask them then. Okay, thank you. We move to now the reports of committees. We have a report from the October 5th Advisory Committee on Disability Issues, and that is Councillor Jackson, I think, chairs that committee. So would you like
I'll
to
move the recommendation first of all.
Okay. Okay, moved and seconded. Could you read it out for just for public record,
Thank you.
please?
That the correspondence be sent to the Minister of Social Development and Poverty Reduction to request that a system be put in place to support people who require assistance with completing applications on the new MySelf-Serve system, which is online.
Great, thank you. So that was moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Jackson?
What this is about is it's no longer possible to go into the Access Center and make an application for disability benefits if you're a disabled person. And if part of your disability happens to include mental disability of some kind, or if you're too poor to own a computer, or if you don't have literacy skills, those people are left completely out of the loop. There's no way online that there's a telephone number that they could call and get some assistance. These applications take anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half to fill out. And so they do their best at Cowichan Valley Independent Living, but what it means is their staff, who has other tasks, is having to take like an hour and a half out of their day to help one person fill out these very, very complex applications. And this is just not working. This was put into the place by the previous government. And so what we're doing here is asking the new government to please consider adding some services to people who are not capable of filling out that application online. So that's the story.
Okay, thank you. So are there any other discussion or questions on this? I'm going to call the question then. All in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. That letter has been drafted. I believe a copy of it was in the package. I'm not sure if it's been sent. It may have already been sent, but it hasn't. So as tonight, it will go under my signature. So we move to item 7.2, which is the October 20th Committee of the Whole recommendations. And I see that Councillor Staples has joined us, but are you at the place where you can read those recommendations? Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay.
This would be item 7.2.1.
Okay, so the red, just a second here. Maybe I'm not. Technical difficulty. My mic seems to be, there we go. Okay, so the Red Willow Women's Society is requesting a $1,000 grant in aid for advocacy training in partnership with representatives of youth and children in care. That council deny the grant and aid request from the Red Willow Women's Society in the amount of $1,000.
Okay, that's a motion to deny, seconded. Okay, any discussion on this? Here none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. So we moved item 7.3, which is November 6th, the whole recommendations, and There are two items with respect to the Island Quarter Foundation, which I will recuse myself from because I sit as a member of the board of directors of Island Quarter Foundation. So, I'll do so.
Mr. Mayor,
And Councillor Staples, you would be, if you could manage this portion of the meeting.
I'll also excuse myself. I have a family member involved.
Okay, it's working. It's okay, this is good. Okay, so I'm just going to read the next motion, and I'd like to note that anyone who wishes to comment after I read the motion can make themselves known to council and get up to the mic and comment. So the motion is 7.3.1, the Island Quarter Foundation train station lease and sublease to the museum. That council approve the lease of the train station at 130 Canada Avenue from the Island Corridor Foundation and the sublease of the station to the Cowichan Historical Society for a 20-year term, substantially as attached to the November 6, 2017 report of the CAO.
Second.
Okay, so I'll call the question again. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment to this or speak to this? Okay, and please state your name and address.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, Acting Mayor, councillors, the city staff, guests this evening. My name is Henry Landry, 365 Day Road in Duncan. And I want to address this issue and try and keep the frustration out of my voice. Councillor, first of all, let me be clear. I'm very much in favor of the sublease, but I have some concerns. And so, Councillor Horrigan, I wonder if you know how old I am. I want to share with you that I'm so old that I remember 1985. 1985 was the year we in Victoria at the Chamber of Commerce began the process of building a train station for the city of Victoria because CP Rail would not acknowledge that West Victoria was part of the city of Victoria, and that was the first time in 27 years of working towards passenger rail on Vancouver Island that I've been involved in helping us to save passenger rail. Unfortunately, passenger rail on Vancouver Island is now dead. And I won't go into the specifics of the poor upper management of the ICF and how it was taken over by a group of people away from those who spent 7 years building the ICF into a wonderful, trustworthy of First Nations, of councillors, of concerned citizens, many of which now are just not included at all. My concern with the train station is, again, once more, the mismanagement with ICF and the way in which the Victoria train station that we worked very hard to raise the funds to build that train station was recently sold to a private enterprise and the money pocketed to ICF. Instead of picking it up and bringing it across to the Roundhouse with the owners that are now developing a complete nature mall there at the old Roundhouse situation, because Via Rail not even speak to ICF anymore because we don't have a train station in Victoria anymore. My concern with our Duncan train station is quite the following. As this beautiful book illustrates over and over again, our train stations are indeed, and have been in the past, places of public access. And so our old wonderful historic train station here, with the wonderful historical museum about to sublease it for 20 years, is a wonderful thing. My concern simply is most public do not understand that the train station, in fact, is the beginning of the so-called New Friendship Trail that goes between our beautiful little downtown city and the Cowichan Commons, trying to marry the two groups into a harmonious citizenship whole. And so the baggage area and the place where we used to go buy our tickets and have the benches where we used to be able to get out of the inclement weather have all been closed off. And I would really hope that this lease, and with the short notice of the public notice, I've been unable to find in the lease any section that allows the train station, as the new subleasee, to make sure that the baggage area and the area which was the benches and where we used to purchase our tickets will forever remain open to the public for a variety of different circumstances. Perhaps, for example, because it's the beginning of the Friendship Trail, a place that would have showers for cyclists, because we have bicyclists coming from Europe, travelers from around the world, from Vancouver Island, that bicycle through here, and this council has talked about showers for cyclists on a couple of occasions in the past. And that would tie in nicely with the public use of that portion of the train station. Secondly, perhaps it could be open to a small tea room or something. And I certainly don't expect that my voice will be heard in a very major way, except to say, I hope the lease does not stop us from having a portion of the train station someday in the future, whether it's new fast electric trains that run the rails or whatever, that there still be public access to this historic train station. I thank you, and I'm open to questions.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, I hope that Mr. DeVertai can help me out here if I stumble a little bit. We do have showers for cyclists, a shower in the basement of this building that cyclists can use if they want to. And there's also one over at Shoppers Drug Mart that a previous planner convinced them to put in there, and as well as locked bike racks and all that. We've had, at one point, we had a satellite tourism office in that waiting room. I don't know where Mr. DeVertai can help me out here, where the satellite tourism office was last year, whether it was actually in the museum or not. But we also had a problem with people breaking through the wall of the waiting room to get into the museum. So in some ways, it's a security issue, because people of maybe not the greatest character on the planet were getting in there and loitering, and people who really did need to come in out of the rain and wait or get warm or whatever were being prevented from using that space because of these other people. So it is quite problematic, but I think some of your ideas are really excellent. And also, the museum is about to go through a big renovation as well. So, and I'm not sure, and again, maybe Mr. DeVertai can help me out, I'm not sure what was planned for that section of that building.
Just a comment before, Peter. There's also showers at VIU for cyclists.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so there are 3 already there, and it was just an open suggestion. I just am concerned that the public be left out of this train station, because we've already lost the one in Victoria. The mayors of Qualicum Beach and Parksville have both turned their train stations into other uses, knowing that passenger rail is dead now.
So to answer the last question first, the area of the renovation, it does not include the waiting room area. Currently, the waiting room area is being used as storage area for the museum, so it's not it's not precluding, I guess, the future use of something else. It's not currently identified with the lease that it has to be returned to a waiting room should the railway need it in the future, but that's still possible that's the case. But the draft of the lease as it exists is for the entire train station building, so the museum will be utilizing the entire building. I do recall, although I'd have to confirm the councillor's recollection that the downstairs washrooms were to be open to the public as well, so I could confirm that and let others know. I'm not positive on the Shoppers Drug Mart reference. I do recall they put in showers. I'm not sure if it was only for their tenants and employees and that sort of thing, or whether it's for entirely public use, but we could look into that as well. Okay. I think that answers all the questions. Oh, satellite office, yes, was more of a shared. So the entranceway, which is part of the renovations to the building that'll be taking place in January and February of this year, will be a revitalized entrance area. So it'll be utilizing what's currently a different portion of the building. There's some double doors that run into the middle section of the building. That will be the new entranceway and be fully updated. I believe the museum got a grant for around $80,000 to redo that portion of the interior building. It's going to be quite attractive, and that serves as a joint entrance to the museum as well as that information satellite station for the downtown.
Any other questions from council? Councillor Horgan.
I have a comment. I think also in the lease, sorry. Also, somewhere in the lease, I can't exactly remember how it's worded, but if the train service does come back to the island, come back to Duncan, that they can take back the station and turn it back into a station with enough notice either way for terminating the lease. So it is a lease only while there is no need for it to be a train station. So it could be a train station again sometime in the future with the right amount of notice to the museum to move out.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Horgan. Any other councillors? Okay, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you for the opportunity to voice a public opinion.
And I'm going to ask if there's anything else that council would like to ask regarding the motion that's on the floor. Okay, hearing nothing, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, and moving on to 7.3.2. The Island Corridor Foundation Parking, Landscaping and Park Area Lease. Council approved the Parking, Landscaping and Park Area Lease with the Island Corridor Foundation for a 20-year term. Substantially is attached to the November 6, 2017 report of the CAO. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Can we call everyone back in?
Thank you, Henry.
So, Peter, if the ICF is declared, dead and gone, then what happens with these leases? They just die with it? Or are we in danger of having that sold out from others?
As currently worded, we have a 19-year lease with no termination during those 19 years. After that, I believe, yes, it could have notice. And there would potentially, even at its peak, only a small portion of the building is actually used as a waiting area.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Staples. So we are moving on to, I guess, item 733. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Thank you. And this is the acting mayor schedule, that the 2018 acting mayor schedule, as included in the November 6, 2017 report of the corporate services coordinator, be adopted. Seconder, thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion's carried. Thank you. So these are very long motions here, and my voice is cracking more and more as I go on here, so this is my vocal cords. So I would ask, maybe Councillor Jackson, would you like to go through these?
Okay. This is 7.3.4 External Committee Commission Appointments. The first is that Council endorse the external non-voting liaison appointments for 2018 as follows. Chamber of Commerce, Councillor Horgan. Cowichan Exhibition Society, Councillor Duncan. Cowichan Historical Society, Councillor Horgan. Chesterfield Sports Society, Cowichan Sportsplex, Councillor Bruce. Cowichan Tribes, Mayor Kent, Councillor Horgan and Councillor Staples. Duncan Business Improvement Area Society, Councillor Staples. Duncan Cowichan Summer Festival Society, Councillor Duncan. Island Corridor Foundation, Councillor Duncan. And Valley Seniors Organization, Councillor Staples and Mayor Kent. That Councillor Jackson be appointed to the Cowichan Valley Regional District Board and Mayor Kemp be appointed as the alternative. That Councillor Duncan be appointed to the Cowichan Valley Regional District Community Safety Advisory Commission and Councillor Horgan be appointed as the alternate. That Councillor Duncan and Councillor Jackson be appointed to the Island Savings Center Commission and Councillor Bell be appointed as the alternate. That Councillor Duncan be appointed to the Vancouver Island Regional Library Board and Councillor Bruce be appointed as the alternate. That Council recommend to the municipality of North Cowichan that they appoint Councillor Bell to the North Cowichan Parks and Recreation Committee, and that Councillor Horgan and Councillor Staples be appointed to the Duncan North Cowichan Joint Utilities Board.
Okay, that is...
I'd just like to point out that in the previous meeting, Councillor Staples recused herself for one of those resolutions, which is the appointment to the Community Safety Advisory Commission.
Okay,
Yes, thank you. I was going to ask to pull that one at
So
the
if we
end.
could separate that one, which is, where is it here?
It's the third that.
Okay.
City Advisory Committee,
Right, okay.
Commission.
So we'll, if that's okay with the mover, we'll exclude that particular appointment in the motion, and then Councillor Staples that can recuse herself for that particular one. Thank you for enduring that long list. Okay, seconded, thank you. And this is all with the exception of the third that. Okay. Any other discussion or questions? Okay, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And we move to that separate one. And if you could read that again, Councillor Jackson.
And I'll recuse myself before that for a conflict of interest.
Okay, that Councillor Duncan be appointed to the Cowichan Valley Regional District Community Safety Advisory Commission, and Councillor Horgan be appointed as the alternate.
So moved.
Okay.
I think I just moved it.
Yes, it was moved. I'll take that as a second. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other discussion on this? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Do you
Okay.
want to do the next one?
Pardon?
Do you want to do the next one?
Yes, it's a long one as well.
Okay.
That's all right. Thank you very much.
Okay, this is 7.3.5, council committee appointments. That council endorse the city's committee appointments for 2018 as follows. The Advisory Committee on Disability Issues, Councillor Jackson Chair and Councillor Bell. Advisory Design Panel, Councillor Michelle Staples, non-voting. Environment and Sustainability Committee, Councillor Jackson Chair and Councillor Duncan. Tourism Committee, Councillor Duncan Chair, Councillor Jackson and Councillor Horgan. Totem Subcommittee, Councillor Jackson, Councillor Horgan, and Councillor Staples.
Okay, seconder, thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries, thank you. So we move to 736 on the agenda, which is a sanitary sewer system assessment award. And the motion that council award McElhaney Consultants Services Limited the contract to carry out phase 1 of the sanitary sewer system assessment, system assessment outlined in RFP number 2017-06 for a total cost of $137,569 excluding GST, and that council approve a letter in support of the city's application to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Asset Management Grant Program.
So moved.
Okay, seconder, thank you. Councillor Duncan.
Thank you, Your Worship. So if we're successful with the grant, is it like a 60-40 one or 50-50, or we hit the lottery again and they give it all to us?
Through Your Worship, the grant is for up to $50,000. So we have put in the capital plan the entire amount in the 2017 and 2018 respective budgets that will cover the phase 1 and phase 2. So that would just come off of that, and we won't spend as much if we're successful.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We move to reports of staff. We have item 8.1, which is the Cowichan Lawn Bowling lease. And this is a disposition of city land through lease. And so I will note that if there's any person that would like to speak or comment on this disposition, may appear in person at this time. It's up to if you'd like to comment on it, you can so.
No, I think I'll just sit in this.
Okay, great, all right. So the motion is that council approve the lease of the portion of the city lands and the Duncan Housing Society lands at 325 and 280 First Street to the Cowichan Lawn Bowling Club for 3 10-year terms, substantially is attached to this October 16th, 2017 report of the CAO.
So moved.
Okay, and moved and seconded by lots. Any discussion on this? Hearing none, call the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. With a jubilant lawn bowling member. For the next 30 years.
Thank you, Carrie.
All right, moved to item 8.2, which is with respect to the 2018 Council and Committee of the Whole meeting calendar. and a motion there to adopt based on the report of the Director of Corporate Services for November 20th. So moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. So move to item 8.3, which is the pad-mounted transformer aesthetic improvement option that council give early budget approval for up to $8,000 as part of the 2018 capital budget to wrap the pad-mounted transformer PMT located at the corner of Station Street and Canada Avenue in a decorative wrap, and that the concrete planters be placed around the PMT to further improve aesthetics and reduce the hazard caused by the concrete pad to pedestrians.
So moved.
And there is a slight one other thing, and that staff be directed to meet with the interests of business owners to establish a process and timeline for their financial contribution and input into the choice of graphics. That was part of the motion. So who moved it? Councillor Jackson, and seconded by. Thank you. Okay. Any discussion on this, Councillor Duncan? Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, so the wrap is definitely the ones that's anti-graffiti type too, where you spray it and the paint just falls right off.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Councillor Jackson.
It's too late in the day to do anything about it, but the placement of the pad is so close to the telephone pole or the hydro pole, whatever it is, that people with big scooters find it very difficult to cross the sidewalk there and get through that narrow little space and then be able to turn around it. So just not that great, unfortunately.
There are a lot of barriers around the city with respect to mobility, I must say.
Maybe they could move 10 feet to the right, they'd miss it.
Nope.
I don't want to lose track of who's at the speak table. I have Councillor Bruce right now, please.
Just clarifying here, are we actually approving this money for this whole package, or is
This is a pre-budget approval, yes.
Okay, so my general comments is, at this stage, I'd like to support the decorative wrap, but putting the extra planter boxes around it for $5,000, I'd have to think a little bit more about that before I'd want to spend that money on planter boxes.
Further discussion, Councillor Jackson.
I'm going to vote in favor of this because that corner has become suddenly one of the ugliest corners in the city, and it's one of the major corners where all the tourism buses land, and we've got to do something to make it nice because right now it's pretty ghastly.
Councillor Duncan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm a little concerned with the comments that you just told us about with regards to scooters getting around, and now we're going to put 2 more planters in the way. So how much space actually is there? I'm concerned that we're making a congested area more congested by putting in planters. So to a certain degree, I agree with Councillor Bruce. I'd like to have some sort of diagram or something to show me that the planters are going to make this more congested. So at this point, with the planters in there and the wrap, I will vote against it.
Just to comment, we were provided with all of these options at prior meetings, and this option was one that council recommended to go forward to council for ratification. So part of the planter piece is to improve any hazard of tripping with the pad that extends slightly outside of the actual transformer size. So that was to provide a more decorative opportunity for things to protect people for walking. There is actually a considerable amount of room at the corner for people who are mounting the sidewalk. If you wanted to go between the pole and the thing, this may create more limited space there, but there is quite a bit of room on the sidewalks and corner there. Mr. DeVertai.
This is the first time I've heard about the restriction between the pole and the PMT. We would certainly not want that to be too tight. So if there was some issue there, we'll look a little bit closer and make sure there is adequate passage room through. Perhaps some of the planters could go on top of the curb as opposed to beside it. We wouldn't want to restrict it, but I do agree that any plantings would be of benefit from an aesthetics perspective. I mean, wrapping itself will certainly help, but additional plantings would also add to it.
Okay, further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is a tie vote, so it is defeated.
So, oh, sorry.
Councillor Jackson.
So where do we go from here? It has to be wrapped, and there has to be something to beautify that. So what would be our next step? We can't just defeat this.
Well, I think
and
the
not
most
do anything.
significant thing is the tripping hazard of the pad, which is what this concrete pad at the street level, which is the most significant issue here. So that has to be addressed in some fashion. Councillor Duncan.
Well, I'd like to move then.
I'd like to move then at this time that we put the decorative wrap and ask staff to do some further investigation as to the dimensions and the plan. I look at the little diagram here, and I find it hard to believe that these two small planters would be $5,000, but that's another story. So at this time, I would move that we do the decorative wrap and get staff to do a site inspection and report back on the concrete planters.
I'll second that.
So it's a motion to refer it back to staff, essentially? Okay, two prongs, so the wrap,
Yeah.
okay?
And get a report from staff on this.
Okay, I just want to be sure that Ms. McWilliam has that.
That council approves that staff be directed to meet with the interested business owners and establish a process as well.
That should
So
stay
for
in
the
the
wrap-
motion, I would think.
I think that would be part of the report, and the site overall look is talk to the immediate business owners.
No, it's
No,
linked-
this-
it's linked to the wrapping, so it's not linked to the,
So that's just for getting the photos on the wrap.
correct.
Yes.
It's still gonna cost $3,000, right? Yeah, so
Depends on the
Depends on the
That's
contributions.
part of my motion that they're consulted with them. Please.
Okay, so the last and that would remain in the motion, and so, Ms. William, could you please read back the motion as you see it now, so we understand clearly?
The council give, I'm just going to modify the motion that was
Okay.
earlier before you. So council give early budget approval for up to $3,000 as part of the 2018 capital budget to wrap the pad mounted transformer located on the corner of Station Street and Canada Avenue in a decorative wrap. And that staff be directed to bring forward a report on other aesthetic improvement opportunities. Does that work? Oh, sorry. And that staff be directed to meet with interested business owners to establish a process and a timeline for their financial contributions and input into the choice of graphics for the wrap.
Okay, thank you. So that is, and so I will take a separate mover for that now. It's been read. Who moved it?
Tom, I think.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Seconded by Councillor Dixon. Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. So we move to item 8.4, which is the sandwich board sign report. That council directs staff to extend the temporary exemption period for 1 year to permit downtown business owners to place one additional sandwich board sign on a nearby street corner beyond their business after 5 p.m. Monday to Saturday and all day on Sundays if the business at that street corner is closed, and the remainder of the sandwich board sign regulations under bylaw number 3095/2013, apart from the one street corner sandwich boards, will still apply.
Moved.
Okay. Any further discussion on it? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Item 8.5, which is the Cowichan Valley Regional District Emergency Management Agreement. The council approve and authorize the mayor and director of corporate services to sign the 5-year CVRD Emergency Management Agreement.
So moved.
Okay. Seconded. Thank you. Any discussion? Ms. William would just give some brief context to that for public, just for public. Or Mr. Dervatai.
This one's mine, actually.
Okay, thank you.
So the emergency management agreement is with the regional district, Ladysmith, North Cowichan, and so on, and it basically just dictates or spells out the details under which we would assist each other in a large-scale emergency. So I've listed in the report there a few changes between the expired agreement and this new one. The other jurisdictions, North Cowichan, Ladysmith, and so on, have all approved it, so we're the last ones to get this sign-off done. So the changes include updating terminology and the provincial plan names, throughout. The assistance now states that it would trigger at a level 2, so even under requesting party could ask for assistance even if it's just within their jurisdiction. So for example, if it's a City of Duncan localized issue, we could still ask for assistance if we need it from the other jurisdictions. It's just the agreement makes it clear that we're responsible for dealing with the province and dealing with funding, and so the other jurisdictions would charge us for any overtime that they incurred as part of that assistance, and then we would be the ones that would submit that to the province for reimbursement. It now states that instead of the request for assistance going through the mayors, the CVRD has changed that so that the requests for assistance flow through the CAOs of each jurisdiction. And it clarifies that the parties will only pay for overtime. The other one was a bit, we only dealt with overtime, but it actually, if read verbatim, would possibly be inferred that you might be actually reimbursing regular hourlies for the people providing assistance. And the other is when we are providing assistance to each other in the form of equipment, that we would be reimbursed based on the Blue Book value, as opposed to some other market value, because that's what the province reimburses us for, whereas a reimbursement through the province for the emergency preparedness stuff.
Okay. All right. Any questions or dialogue? Councillor Jackson?
Not so much a question, but a comment. It was pretty interesting this summer during the fire season when we loaned CVRD CAO Brian Carruthers to Williams Lake, because he had been the CAO there and was very familiar with the city. And he was the liaison because there was emergency management group with the city, but there was also an emergency management, or a regional emergency management center, and they weren't really talking to each other. So he was up there for, I think, 2 weeks, being the liaison between those two emergency management centers, because one was doing one thing and one was doing another thing, or they were both doing the same thing, and he was able to help that. So I'm glad we don't have that set up here.
Well, in many cases, such as in respect of the floods, which have affected just the city and district of Cowichan in 2009, the Emergency Operations Center was managed through the Regional Emergency Response. So it was just one central thing with all people at the table, and the CAOs played a significant role in leading that emergency office response at different times, because it was operating pretty much around the clock for quite some time. So, obviously that's the important part about emergency planning, is that the operations of emergency response is coordinated through a single body, and we do that here, and I would expect that most do around the province. This kind of assistance would not require would it require a local area emergency declaration by the mayor, though?
Not necessarily, no.
So this could kick in lower tier kinds of responses?
I'd have to confirm, but it may kick in. It does definitely can kick in a lower tier. I'm not sure whether, I would have to confirm whether it has to have a local state of emergency to trigger it or not.
Yeah.
Typically you would if it's that type of a scenario.
I would have thought that if you were going to be reimbursed through Emergency Management BC, that there would need to be some declaration made.
Would always occur. I'm not sure if it's a requirement of it to occur. So.
Right. Okay. To at least trigger assistance. Yeah.
It's level 2 in here.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. So I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you for the explanation. So we move to 8.6, which is 148th Kenneth Street parking lot. This is the previous Elks parking lot, which the city purchased the property. And it says that up to $20,000 of patch paving be carried out on the 148th Kenneth Street parking lot utilizing parking reserve funds, and that if the patching can be scheduled for 2017, that the staff bring forward an amendment to 2017 financial plan accordingly, and that if Tanchik cannot be scheduled for 2017, the expenditures be added to the 2018 capital plan. Moved, seconder?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion, Councillor Duncan?
Did you find very many cars in those potholes?
few shoes, but.
Yeah, a pair of my shoes were in there. Councillor Bruce.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. In some of the notes here, we've got repaving the entire parking lot at 60,000 versus patching. I definitely think we want to do some sort of patching before Christmas, whatever that entails. I'm not a big fan of spending the 20,000 on a patch paving program when really I feel that we should do the parking lot fully for the 60,000. But of course, we probably can't do that before Christmas. Duncan Paving still working right now, or?
Through your work, yeah, Duncan Paving is currently still working. We have a couple of smaller patches that we still are hoping to get done before they shut down the plant this year. We're not certain, as it mentions in there, that's why the recommendation's laid out it is. We're not certain we can fit it in at all this year. I doubt very much whether we could get a complete repave of the parking lot. The other reason I mentioned in there that I'm not sure it's the best use to spend the 60 or potentially up to 75, depending on contingencies on the parking lot, depending on the long-term potential of the lot. Obviously, we have the 2 lots now, and there has been some discussion potentially of doing some form of structure, possibly, and obviously we've got the parking management group we're going to be reconstituting, so there's going to be lots of discussions. And to pave it now would almost be assuming we're going to be leaving it as a paved parking lot for a number of years, whereas that's why we're recommending just spending the up to 20 now to get us through a few years. Because if there is another long-term change, that's going to take a number of years to get us to that point.
So the 20,000, will it? I know you don't go very deep when you put when you spend the 20,000, but will the whole parking lot kind of look like it's resurfaced with some new white lines?
It would be patched. So there will be sections that are untouched and sections that are patched. So there would still be lots of old pavement as well as the new patches.
The reason I hesitate a little bit is a parkade that we're talking about is probably $3 to $4 million to put up, and that's going to be a tough one for the city of Duncan to crack.
Was that it?
I think so. So humming and on.
Councillor Horgan.
Yeah, I don't think that it's. I think it's way too late now in this time of the year to try to actually do any paving. I think it's too wet, too damp, too cold. I would suggest to save an awful lot of money, just put a load or two of gravel in there, level it out and roll it just for the winter, and then do it in the spring. Look, making a better job in the spring, but I think if you filled the potholes with gravel and rolled it, I think that would probably survive through the winter.
Councillor Duncan.
Thank you, Your Worship. So through you to Mr. DeVert, I assume that if we have to wait to the spring for the paving, that we will still have to put some gravel in there anyway.
Definitely.
Or we'll lose more cars, right?
Likely even some cold patch certain sections depending on it, that particularly the travel portion. That we did do some patching, albeit cold patching, in the travel portion of the parking lot earlier this year. But it just, as soon as the rains came, that's where it just won't last. And gravel will be a challenge as well. Certainly that's what we would have to do if we can't pave this fall anyway. We will just have to, grit our teeth and try to get through this.
I just have a question. The hot patch paving is typically quite a bit more substantial than cold patch that we would use temporarily. Yes. And it obviously, which did not hold up for very long at all. So with the $20,000 that's suggested to do the hot in place, that would fix at least those sections as new for the time being, yeah. I've had significant comment about it from public who use the parking lot, and that's a great parking facility. The one way in and one way out works very well. It's increased capacity of public parking there, and the turnover is good there as well. But adventure parking, yeah. No, I don't think people are appreciating that part of the experience, and it is directly downtown. So I think that I'm not sure that cold patching or gravel would last, from one storm to another. To be honest, I think it needs a bit more than that. Duncan Paving are professional. When they do it, they'll look at the appropriate areas to deal with, and our people at Public Works are experienced in that as well. So I would encourage us to move on the recommendation as it's put forward and allow staff to address this for at least a reasonable fix. Any more further discussion or comment on this? Hearing none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Well done.
Yeah, good questions. All right, thank you. We move to the building statistics report. This is just simply for provided for information. So motion to receive for information. Moved and seconded. Thank you. Any discussion? Councilor Duncan?
No.
Oh, you're going to vote? All in favor? I got to call the question first. Okay. Carried. Thank you. So we move to 8.8. This was one of the late items on the agenda. The council award communications consultant, RFP, to Monroe Thompson for a total cost of $78,000 plus tax. And just to give this some, and I'll get a mover and seconder. Thank you. Moved and seconded. Just to give it some context, this is with respect to the amalgamation referendum coming up for North Couch and Duncan. And this is part of the communication process of informing residents of the impacts of amalgamation or not going forward. Maybe Councillor Staples, you're on the working group and you looked through, praised the, and there were a number of consultants, it looks like 10 almost, consultants that responded to the RFP. So would you like to speak to it, Councillor Staples?
Sure. Not much really, other than the fact that we were, it came down to sort of two that we looked at, and we sat and went through them as a committee and decided that this one had the experience and had worked through some very challenging situations in other places that would have been hard, that could have been divisive in communities, and did very well with that work. So that was one of the major contributing factors to going with this organization.
Thanks, Councillor Duncan.
Thank you, Your Worship. And the $78,000, that's shared cost, isn't it? What's our portion?
Yes, I think the bulk of those costs will be with the District of North Couch. Actually, we've already budgeted in our budget plan for our amount. I can't remember what it was exactly.
The formula that council agreed to is a per capita formula. It's about $2.80 a person.
Okay. Great. So, any further comment or questions? I'm going to call the question on this. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And of course, we await response from the province with respect to the date of the referendum. So we can't make any firm announcements at this point. All right, we move to bylaws, and I'll just allow Ms. Janot to get set up because she will be doing some presentation on this. So I'll read the bylaw. This is with respect to the zoning bylaw that council rescind first and second readings of the zoning bylaw number 3166/2017, and that council give first and second readings to revised zoning bylaw number 3166/2017 is attached to the November 20th council meeting agenda. A bylaw to regulate the use of land, buildings, and structures, require off-street parking and loading spaces, and establish standards for provision of landscaping and screening. If there's a mover and seconder, thank you. Moved and seconded. And as you know, you're just lined up to show us or to present the changes. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Just speak closely into it. So,
yep.
Yeah, thank you.
So the zoning bylaw regulates all land use within the city. Our current zoning bylaw is almost 30 years old and no longer reflects the plans and policies of the city, such as the official community plan. The new zoning bylaw received first and second reading back in August and went to public hearing in September. And after the public hearing, council directed staff to answer some of the questions and make some changes to the bylaw. So some of the recent changes in the past couple of months include removing provisions that would have allowed fabric-covered structures such as temporary vehicle storage structure within residential zones. So that has been moved to a use that is prohibited in all zones. Also changing the name of the heat pump section to regulate a more general term, mechanical equipment. So a definition has been added for that. And there is a map within the bylaw on setbacks to public roads for the downtown area. So I'll show you that map later on, but that was revised from an additional 2-meter setback to a 1.5-meter setback, in addition to the other downtown zone setback, which is 1 meter for most of the downtown zone properties. The bylaw had a proposed below-grade parking requirement for a large area within the city, and that has been removed from the bylaw now, as well as the cash-in-lieu parking requirement that would have been included as well. The zoning bylaw has new regulation for density as floor area ratio instead of units per hectare, and floor area ratio was also added to the low-density residential zone to regulate the maximum building size, floor area within that zone. Oops, sorry. There were some changes made to the accessory building setbacks for the low-density zone as well. So now the setback for rear and interior side yard will be 1.5 meters, and accessory buildings that have an accessory dwelling within them will require a 3-meter setback for the second story of that building. And accessory building regulations were also added to the downtown zone. There were some changes made to the commercial and store vehicle sections that also includes recreational vehicles and watercraft. And further to Councillor Jackson's question about setback exceptions for swimming pools, we've added a regulation for a setback for in-ground swimming pools to the bylaw. Public consultation on the bylaw has been ongoing since April, with a number of open houses and public events and inclusion in the city's newsletter, external referrals, and in October, a notice about the zone bylaw was distributed to downtown property owners, inviting property owners to contact staff to discuss the proposed changes in the bylaw. I've included this in the presentation, the existing zoning map and the new zoning map, just to demonstrate further the consolidation of the number of zones in bylaw. There aren't any more changes to the zoning map, but just to demonstrate again some of the changes that we are making are there's an area just north of downtown, of the downtown core, west of Jubilee Street, that is currently medium density, moving that to high density residential, as well as currently north of, I guess, Cairnsmore, all along Canada Avenue, there's some C3 service commercial properties and C1. So those will be zoned neighborhood commercial for the most part. This is showing the downtown area. So one of the changes downtown is we currently have a couple of service commercial zones. Those will be now downtown comprehensive in the new bylaw. And this also shows another area that currently has a lot of medium density residential, will be zoned high density residential in the new bylaw. So this is the additional front setback map that I mentioned earlier. So it includes Evans Street, Boundary Street, Jubilee Street, and Kenneth Street. So these are some of our narrower streets downtown, Also, streets with narrower sidewalks, or in the case of Evans Street, there's only a sidewalk on one side, so we're proposing additional setbacks. Part of this is that it may facilitate sidewalk widening or road widening in the future. The new zoning bylaw also includes a shared access map. So properties within this area will require shared driveway access. If the property frontage is under 40 meters, they will need to, if undergoing redevelopment, will need to provide a shared access under some form of agreement with the neighbors, with the hopes that we will reduce driveway accesses and sidewalk crossings to make a more safe pedestrian environment. Again, we've consolidated a lot of existing zones. So the new bylaw will have 3 residential zones: low density, medium density, and high density. So this is really simplifying from our current bylaw. As I mentioned, we're moving from removing the density from units per hectare to floor area ratio. So instead of regulating the number of residential units that a development can have, we're regulating the total floor area that the development can have in relation to the area of the property. With this, we've also introduced some density bonusing, which will allow for additional density from the base density if community amenities are provided, such as affordable housing, underground parking, or energy efficiency, meeting the BC Energy Step Code. And as we're also consolidating the number of commercial zones down to 3 as well. We have 2 current institutional zones. Those are renamed in the new bylaw: community service and community parks. So I've just outlined the current process for the bylaw adoption. So if the bylaw receives first and second reading tonight, it will proceed to public hearing next Monday. Advertising has already gone out for that in accordance with the Local Government Act. And it's possible that same evening that council could give third reading to the bylaw. Once third reading is given, the bylaw will be forwarded to the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure for approval. And after that approval, it will come back to council for final approval. That's all I have to say about it tonight. Do you have any questions?
Any further questions, council? Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. I'm a fan of changing the zoning from 16 down to 8 roughly. I think that's a great plan, and I really appreciate us taking a little bit more time to get more feedback from the public. Since we made these changes in the last month, have you heard any theme coming from the public, or does it seem, are most people with their calls and questions okay with things once you've had a chance to chat with them and explain things?
I haven't, since we've made the additional change in the past couple of weeks, haven't received any further questions about it. Still, yeah, in October when we sent it out, there was some concern from downtown property owners about the requirements for shared access. That was one of the major concerns, and the additional setback that's required on some properties. And the underground parking that was required under the previous version of the draft bylaw as well. That was a major concern for the additional costs that would cause for development.
So I would suggest with the changes that we would encourage people to go online to see the changes. Mm-hmm. They're posted on the website, Art?
Yes, they are.
And attend the public hearing on next Monday on the 27th. That is a time for people to come out and be heard. And as I say, this is the second public hearing. Because of the number of changes that were made, it was felt that we needed to go to a second public hearing. So that is the opportunity for the people to come and comment and provide written submissions if they so choose to do so. And council could still at that time consider other changes. So this is part of the process, and encourage people to get engaged with it if they have input to provide. So thank you very much, Mr. Janot, for your report. And the motion is already moved and seconded. And so is there any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. So we move to item 10 on the agenda, which is bylaws first, second, and third readings. We have item 10, which is the council procedure bylaw amendment, and the council 3 readings to the council procedure bylaw amendment number 3050.02 2017, a bylaw to provide an additional process by which council's decisions can be reconsidered. And this would be embedded in our procedure bylaw. So move, seconder. Thank you. Any discussion? Councillor Bruce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wondering, from staff's point of view, is there any challenges with having this in place? Can you envision any situation where it wouldn't be good for a couple of councillors to be able to call something back?
So thank you for the question, through your worship. This amendment would actually make our lives potentially a little bit easier, because sometimes a motion will come forward and be considered possibly in haste, and so this gives any member of council the opportunity to bring it back. The way that the bylaw is structured, the amendment bylaw here is structured, it would have to be considered at the very next meeting, so it's not as though it could hang out for more than a month. And then if it was approved at that time, at that meeting, the main motion wouldn't be considered until all council members are present. So it's an opportunity for all council members to have a chance to reconsider the main motion.
Supplementary?
Yeah. Okay. Just wondering on a contentious issue, when we first got on council, we had the Dakova building going up. So just trying to get my mind around, if we passed it and approved it and the developer's ready to act on it, but then a couple of councillors decide they want to pull it back, then they could do that, and we would delay the developer potentially another month while we wait for all 7 councillors to be back in the next meeting. Is that a situation that would cause some challenges?
In that scenario, excuse me, Your Worship, the question would have to be posed at the very next meeting, and the majority of council would have to agree that they wish to reconsider that. So if and as the details bring out, that if it's already been acted upon, if we already had an application, if we already got a building permit taken out, those are already underway. So it's only if there's some pause and ability to reconsider, which sometimes there is, it gives that avenue, because currently that ability is restricted only to the mayor through legislation. So this provides, in certain circumstances, the ability for council, at least a couple, to bring it forward onto the table, and then again, the majority of council would have to agree that they even want to talk about it. If it's a non-starter and it's just one councillor wants to bring something back because it was a 6-1 vote at the last vote, and they would want to talk about it again, the council could just say, we already did that, it's not something we want to consider. So it just provides that opportunity, should, otherwise you're always relying on only the mayor and the mayor only to ever be able to bring something back, which might not always be the case.
I've done it 3 times in 12 years.
The mayor's done it on a few occasions, and that's proved quite feasible and worked quite well, but there are scenarios in the future, different mayor, if different circumstances, that might not work out. So you want to have that potential ability to do that if the majority of council would like to reconsider something, new information, whatever those reasons are.
Councillor Duncan.
Thank you, Your Worship. You stole part of my thunder. I think I could only remember it ever occurring once in the 8 years that I've been here. So,
yeah, it's something that it is covered under the Act and under the community charter, that the mayor can bring an item back after up to 30 days after for reconsideration, and it comes back to the table as something to be voted on. So it is reconsidered. So this is just this was suggested by Ms. William, and we did discuss it in advance of putting this procedure bylaw piece together. It just does provide another opportunity, and there are examples of this in other procedure bylaws and through the examples in the. I can't believe where the examples were found. I think it's under the.
The Ministry of Municipal Affairs has a model bylaw that they have provided to
Correct.
all member municipalities.
It includes similar section in that bylaw. So, all right. Okay. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. So we move to the item 10.2, which is the fees and charges amendment bylaw number 3175. The council 3 readings up to the fees and charges amendment bylaw 3175 2017, a bylaw to update the sewer and water rates for 2018. Okay, seconded. Thank you. Any questions? Ms. Soldera, do you want to speak to the rate changes in the bylaw?
So the bylaw proposes a 7% increase to sewer rates. This will help offset some of the borrowing that will be needed when the outfall is located, because the city's cost of that is quite high. It also proposes a 5% increase to water rates for the year. As everyone's aware, we are engaging on our water metering program, and while almost all of the meters are in, or more than half of the city's meters are in, we don't have the data on all of them yet, so we haven't started charging all metered water rate yet. So this will help make sure we have enough funds going forward to fix water breaks and that sort of thing, as we've almost fully depleted our reserves in putting in the water meters, and it will also tide us over until we have better data to be able to revamp our entire rate structure.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so this is for first 3 readings. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. So we move to items 11, which is bylaw adoption, and we have items 11.1, which is the Animal Regulation and Impounding Amendment Bylaw. The council adopt the Animal Regulation and Impounding Amendment Bylaw 3139.03 2017, a bylaw to amend the Animal Regulation and Impounding Bylaw to the correct section numbering and included licensing provisions for dangerous dogs.
So moved.
Seconder, thank you. Any discussion on this one? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 11.2, which is the business improvement area fee structure area. One bylaw. So there are 2 separate areas for the bylaw here. The structure 1 and structure area 2, as they've been renamed. The council adopt the bylaw, our business improvement fee structure area 1 bylaw 3173 2017, a bylaw to establish a business improvement fee structure area 1 within the city of Duncan. Moved and seconder, thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And move to 11.3. This is with respect to fee structure area 2. The council adopt business improvement fee structure area 2 bylaw number 3174 2017, a bylaw to establish business improvement fee structure 2 area in the city of Duncan. Mover, thank you. Seconded. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And we move on to one of the new business items, or late business items, which is correspondence. Item 12.1, United Way, from the United Way dated November 11th regarding a warming station for the community members living rough in the city. The council directs staff to draft a report on the financial and community impacts of establishing a warming station as requested by the United Way.
I'd like to remove myself. I have a voting seat on the committee that this came through.
With the United Way?
It's from the emergency response table, so I have at work I have a voting seat on that table.
All right. Councillor Horgan.
Yeah, I'd like some clarification on this. I'm not quite sure what we're looking at here, whether we're looking at helping to fund this, or we're looking for a location, or...
Well, they in the correspondence from United Way, they provided a letter asking specifically. There's a number. I've been involved in some of the what we call community response team meetings and some of the housing meetings. And as part of the housing coalition, or the strategy towards working towards affordable housing solutions and solutions with respect to homeless, the issue with respect to shelters use in the area were not deemed as adequate, because we have still quite a number of people who are still living fully rough or fully homeless. And now, before we had the Warmland Shelter, the city had participated in trying to provide some emergency shelter assistance. We did it first through the field houses we had at Macadam Park because they're heated, and there was a group, ad hoc group in the area of people from mental health, people, street workers, social workers as well, who worked together to provide some basic emergency cold weather shelter. And so they used the field houses because they were heated and had showers and facilities that could keep people warm and protected, and then they would feed them. So they are requesting looking at the field houses again for those who are sleeping, you know, fully out in the weather, in the cold weather, to allow that place to go for a few hours in the morning to get warmed, get a meal, coffee, maybe dry out some of their clothes, and then move on their way. And that's how it was done before. After that warming station was used, we used a portion of the Mark Moss clinic for an actual emergency cold weather shelter as well. And then that precipitated in time to developing a permanent shelter. One of the challenges with the shelters is this is a low barrier shelter, so there are some barriers for people who are trying to be abstinent from drugs or alcohol, and they would not comfortable being at the shelter. Many women are not comfortable using the shelter, especially young women. And so there's other initiatives to try to find a place that maybe we can could be established. I'm not saying necessarily by the city, but it could be for a women's only shelter in the city as well. Now, there's a large group of people who are working together collaboratively on this. United Way is spearheading it because they're the organization that could make an application. BC Housing would have to be involved because these would need to be supported. So this is the initial ask with respect to the city moving forward, getting a staff report on costs, looking at the way that it would be operated, the kind of support that it would need it to be operational and functional and not a burden on other citizens in the city. That's important as well. So those things still need to be provided. You know, exactly how would this be operational if it were to go forward. So the recommendation is to look for staff to provide a report. Okay, so that's moved. Is there a second for the motion at this point? Thank you. Councillor Bruce.
Yeah, I'm in support of this. A year or two ago, we talked a little bit at our council table about the Campbell River emergency portable housing that they successfully put in up there. And so I would encourage these folks at United Way to give Campbell River a phone call and see how they're making out with their program. Thank you.
Councillor Jackson.
I'm wondering about hopefully a friendly amendment to this, that if we can get this report by the next committee of the whole and give the committee of the whole power to act, because otherwise if we wait until the next council meeting, winter's going to be half over.
The next committee of the whole is actually the annual meeting, so there won't, this time weren't planning on putting any items for items of business on the meeting agenda. However, a special meeting could be called, perhaps, if council would like.
We have an opportunity, and we can call a special meeting if there's a proposal for us to specifically look at with respect to all of this. We could address it, in short order.
So when would we get the report? Would you email it to us so that we could read it before the next meeting, or?
First, we'll have to start writing it and see how much information we can get and what kind of time frame they're looking at. I'm not sure, we don't have much in the way of info at this moment as to whether they need indication of the location before they make the application to the province, or is it vice versa? Are we getting the application to the province and then we're going to look for location? So there's lots of questions that we have, but certainly interested in looking
This motion will give staff the ability to go in now, dig into providing all of that information with respect to funding, support, who's going to manage it, how it would be managed, and it was there before. I think there weren't any issues with, but many of the sports teams are operating now and still use those field houses at certain times of the day. So it would not be a place for people to hang out. It would be for them to get warm and cleaned up and ready for the next part of the day. Right. So I'm going to call the question on this motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. So we move to reports of the mayor and council. Are there any councillors that have reports? Okay. And if we can get Michelle May. Councillor Duncan, anything? Councillor Staples, do you have any reports to? No? Thank you. Okay. I have quite a long list, and I haven't really generally read them out when they're this long, but I just do want to touch bases on a number of things here. I, along with a number of other councillors, I believe Councillor Horgan, Councillor Duncan and myself and Mr. Divertai attended an engagement session with the Downtown Business Improvement Area Society on the 23rd of October. And it was actually a very good session. I think we had a very good conversation with the association, and I think there'll be some improved partnership initiatives that will come out of that, certainly in the way of communication and working together. I attended on the 25th on invitation of the school district to participate in a performance review of superintendent of School District 79, and that was actually a very nice experience. The interviewer, the consultant they had, was very experienced and very wanted to hear a lot about this community. I thought that was great. I also attended that later that day, the VIA Economic Summit in Nanaimo. And I attended very specifically a session that was being sponsored or asked to sponsor for the Cowichan region. And we had Kathy Robertson and Amy Melmock, Julie from the Chamber of Commerce on a panel, a number of others, and a moderator. And they did a really great job of representing the Cowichan, what was working here, what was not working, things that progress that was being made with respect to strategic direction in the area. And there was also a businesswoman there from the is it No Nothing? I'm not sure. That's not what she calls it anymore, but it's changed the name. But there, and talked about their business experience in the Cowichan area and how they were building, and really the biggest message was collaboration was really the greatest strength that we have is when we work together with others. Partnerships that created. So they represented the Valley very, very well. I attended the next morning an ICF board meeting in Nanaimo. On the 28th, I was at the grand opening of the JISC Bed, Bath & Home opening at the Duncan Plaza or the Duncan Mall. It was a great opening. I was amazed because the invitation said be there at 7:50 in the morning. I thought, boy, 7:50 in the morning, and it was kind of cold and not pleasant weather, but there were hundreds and hundreds of people lined up outside. Wow. The CEO of JISC Canada was there with a number of other senior staff from their headquarters in Port Coquitlam. I believe this is their largest store in Canada. They were thrilled with the opening and the turnout, and the CEO was from Iceland, his original place of birth. He was very animated and very positive, and he knew the name of just about every employee in the place. He knew how long they had worked with the company and what they did. So it was a neat experience. So I walked through the store with him, and it's quite a large store. But I think it's a very successful opening for them. I also attended the BC Summer Games, and this is why I'm dressed the way I am. I should probably stand up a little, let people see the jacket. I attended the BC Summer Games Volunteer Appreciation and Recognition evening, where they announced all of the directors and chairs for the BC Summer Games, which are coming to the Cowichan in July 19th to 22nd. That is Summer Festival weekend, so it's going to be quite a party in the Cowichan Valley. There'll be lots going on, lots for visitors who are coming. It's going to attract 3,200 athletic participants, coaches, and officials, as well as their families and others who would be stopping here to watch sports events. So it's going to be a very, very big event. And this green jacket, you see them around, recognize the people for the effort they're putting in, and they'll be volunteering, putting in more and more hours as we get closer to the BC Summer Games. It will be an event. On the next day, I attended an ICF, I won't pass that. Okay. On the 7th of November, I joined the Cowichan Community Plan Steering Committee for Housing, which is a housing strategy being developed with the regional district, sponsored and led by the United Way and consultants. It is now going to be transitioning into what we call the Cowichan Housing Coalition. And that coalition will be keeping groups together that are at the table, which include Cowichan Housing Society, Community Futures, there's many groups, housing groups and social groups that are there. And part of the spin-off of that group is what this winter response team that's been meeting with respect to trying to develop this warming center and a women's shelter. So that happened the next day. We met the next morning, that group, and at Sea Waves and on Evan Street, and we this precipitated the correspondence that we got from the United Way with respect to approaching BC Housing for funding to support these things. On the Thursday, I met along with other ICF representatives, the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure, Claire Trevena, in Victoria at the legislature. We had a good meeting with Mr. Trevena, and we presented a capital plan for with respect to repairs and upgrades to the rail. I met the next day on the 10th, Friday, with the Minister of Education along with School District 79, North Cowichan Tribes and the university with respect to the establishment of new high school campus for the city. It was a very good meeting. In fact, I think he was there for almost an hour. Very, very good discussion and a very, very clear sense of community here that he's expressed to us. He doesn't see often around the province with respect to school districts and municipalities and community working together. He really understood that we were all on the same page, and that we would really prove to them that the establishment of a new high school campus here would actually become a model for the way communities work together with education in developing a community. So he was very impressed by that. Of course, many of us, I did see Councillor Dunn. I'm not sure if I saw anyone else for Remembrance Day, the cenotaph. I was at the cenotaph, and the ceremony is always very well done, and there was a huge crowd there. I can't always see them because I'm a little vertically challenged, so even on my tiptoes I can't really see who's there, but I did try, but it seemed to be a very large, certainly from where I was, the sound was very clear and crisp, and I got lots of good comments from people on the ceremony. There was a slight delay in time between the end of the last post and the moment of silence. So hopefully there'll be some minor adjustment there in the schedule to make sure that doesn't happen again. I attended the Tech Strategy Project Steering Committee. I've been on that steering committee now for several months, and we are just receiving a consultant's report from Goss Gilroy with respect to development of economic development in technology in the area. So the report was very well done. We just went through it and made some minor suggestions to the consultants for improvement of it. And that's it. The rest of my list is things coming up. So, Councillor Jackson.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. October 29th, I was with other councillors and the mayor. I attended the Legion Poppy flag raising ceremony on November the 9th. Councillor Duncan and I were with the Island Savings Centre Commission and finishing our budgeting process. We're going to be spending some significant amounts of money on the theatre in terms of the lighting, but what will happen is the energy savings are going to be phenomenal. Some of those lights are so old that they don't even make bulbs for them anymore, so they've got to go online seeking people who've got these old bulbs. The new LED lights are going to mean that the lights will be brighter, and also that they're not going to have to use the HVAC system to cool down the control room and different parts of the theater. There's going to be like massive energy savings, so that's going to be a good thing. So yes, there's going to be some upfront costs, but over a period of time, we'll be making our money back. What did they say, Tom? Within 2 or 3 years?
90% savings on power.
Yeah.
That is 90%.
Yeah. And then on November the 16th, I went to a community policing meeting at CVRD. We discussed a number of topics, but one of them was that Area E is considering to join the community policing function, thank you, and figuring out what was the best method of doing it, like go to an AAP or a referendum in 2018. And Director Nicholson wants to figure out how she's going to be doing community engagement. So right now, it's the only people that are involved are Cowichan Bay, Duncan, and North Cowichan. So if they actually do come in on the function, then our costs will slightly drop.
Slightly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that your report?
That's it. Yeah.
There
thank
was
you.
no one else? Councillor Duncan?
Thank you, Your Worship. And not much left after yourself and Councillor Jackson. We've all attended a lot of those meetings. I was at the Cowichan Safety Advisory Commission meeting with Councillor Staples. And on Saturday, I attended the Sports Wall of Fame, also with Councillor Staples. Thursday, we had a tourism committee meeting and looked over our budget for the upcoming year. And again, yes, the things that we're going to see at the community center, it will be an initial upfront cost, but the savings, and it also opens up our theater to booking better shows, because right now we've had over 200 bookings. That includes local groups that are using the stage and stuff. Before, one of the reasons we had less bookings, it used to be called the Duncan Theater. So if you were a promoter and you did a search online, you'd find Duncan had 5,000 people. Well, I'm not going to take my show there. Now that it's the Cowichan Performing Arts Theater, you do a search for Cowichan, and you find there's 85,000 people. So this is sort of a way that's brought a lot more business in. And what's it called? First Nation or one of the nation? There's another group that had been using our theater. They did come in last summer for one show. They loved it so much. They loved the way the staff treated them. Now we're on that circuit too. So. And as an example, we had the CBC, the Debater show on Friday, which was so much fun. My stomach hurt for 2 days from laughing.
I was also there.
Paige was there too. Half the council was there too.
Thank you. Okay, we move on to proclamations. We have one proclamation, from the Kinsmen and Kinnets, and this is with respect to the Kinsmen and Kinnets Week, February 18th to 24th, 2018. That council proclaimed February 18th and 24th to 24th, 2018 as Kinsmen and Kinnets Week in the city of Duncan.
So moved.
Seconder, thank you. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. It's actually quite a active group of Kinsmen and Kinnets here in the city, and I've attended a couple of their meetings, and they actually do some pretty cool stuff. So hats off to their service. It's good to see. So we move on to question period. Are there any questions from council or the public? No questions? Not to put you on the spot, young man, but...
What do you mean? This is the biggest it's been in a while since we've got here. Really?
Councillor Bruce? Councillor Bruce, do you have a
just
question?
regarding the crossing lights, are we still anticipating we're going to have the two on Canada Avenue done before year end?
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so motion to resolve to go into camera into closed session. The meeting be closed under section 91C, labor relations or other employee relations of the community charter. Thank you. Seconder. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And